Teachings of the Master Jesus. Children of the one God, your faith has brought you here. Revelations of the living Christ for the awakening of the soul and the return to unity. The door of the heart is open. Beloved being of light, eternal child of the one God, you who walk amidst the shadows of this world, but whose soul still remembers the pure vibration of the original home. If these words have reached you, it is not by chance nor the product of intellect. It is the sacred result of a cosmic appointment that was written on the invisible pages of your soul even before your birth. You have been called, and you have answered, perhaps not consciously, because there is a part of you that has never forgotten who you are or where you come from. This is the hour when truth is revealed not as an abstract idea, but as a living fire that burns silently on the altar of your heart. It is the time when the veil that separates the divine from the human begins to dissolve, because Christ consciousness, that unconditional, pure, unlimited awareness, longs to fully express itself through you, as you. Jesus, the living Christ, does not belong to any one religion, nor is he confined to the narratives of the past. He is the embodiment of absolute love incarnate, the living Logos, the eternal principle that unites the Creator with his creation. He has never stopped speaking since the day he walked the earth, for his presence is not dependent on time, but on spiritual frequency. He is the bridge between heaven and earth, the torch aflame that guides every soul willing to awaken from the dream of forgetfulness and return to the sacred temple of their being. But hear this well. Jesus does not come to impose dogmas, but to invite you into a living, constant communion with your essence. He does not appear as an external idol, but as the awakening of your inner divinity. He did not come to found yet another religion, but to reveal the path of return to unity. Each of his words is not meant to be merely read, or even only understood. It must be absorbed, integrated, lived, like a seed of eternal life that, when planted in your consciousness, blossoms into fruits of peace, healing, clarity, and compassion. You are not here by coincidence. In the midst of the chaos of this fragmented world, your soul has been touched by a different frequency, a vibration that does not belong to the fleeting nor the illusory. It is the vibration of the Christ. It is the vibration of the kingdom. It is not found in temples of stone, nor in formulas recited by memory, nor in empty rituals. It is within you, waiting for your recognition. And to recognize it, you must cross the most sacred threshold, the threshold of your own heart. There, where concepts dissolve, where the ego loses its grip, where wounds begin to heal not by effort but by presence. The presence of the divine in you. That presence which Jesus called Father, also called Mother, revealed as the Holy Spirit, and which you can now know directly, without intermediaries. For you were created for that direct communion. These teachings, therefore, do not seek to entertain or convince. They come to remind you of the sacred covenant you made with the light before entering this world. To remind you that you carry a divine spark, that your soul was sent here to anchor the consciousness of love into matter, to transform your life into a living testimony of the presence of God. When Jesus spoke the words, "The kingdom of heaven is within you," he was not speaking metaphorically. He was handing you a key. That key has been ignored for centuries. God has been sought outside, appeased with sacrifices, feared as an unyielding judge. But now the veil is falling, and the essential truth is revealed. God lives in you, as you. And the kingdom is not a place reached after death. It is a reality awakened in consciousness when the soul returns to its source. Every word Jesus speaks is a living vibration. It is not made of sound, but of spirit. It is a frequency that activates dormant codes in your spiritual DNA. It is medicine for the soul. It is the alchemy that transforms the limited self into the unlimited I am. You did not come into this world to crawl, to suffer, or to be a slave of the system. You came to remember, to liberate, to rise. And now, the Master is calling you. Yes, He is calling you. Your past does not matter. How many times you've fallen does not matter. Whether you feel ready or not does not matter. Because the heart that opens, even in fear, is already entering the kingdom. Light does not demand perfection, only sincerity. This message is not just a teaching, it is an activation. It prepares you for an inner rebirth. Jesus does not desire empty worship, He seeks authentic presence. He does not demand, He invites. He does not command, He guides. He does not condemn, He restores. And today He stands before you not with a golden crown, but with a torch of living fire, so that you may take it and remember that you too are light. So, beloved soul, if these words resonate deep within your being, do not ignore them. Do not let the noise of the world extinguish this spark, because this spark is the beginning of your return. The Master is with you. The door is open. The kingdom lives within you. The question is, are you willing to enter? Faith as a bridge to the inner kingdom. Faith is not an act of reason, nor a mere mental agreement with a doctrine. It is not a fleeting emotion or a desperate resort when all else fails. Faith is a sacred, invisible, and immeasurable substance that arises from the most intimate dimension of the soul and connects directly with the divine plane. It is the subtle fabric that unites the visible world with the eternal world, the living bridge between the human and the divine, between time and eternity, between the creature and its creator. When Jesus taught that if your faith were like a mustard seed you could move mountains, He was not speaking in empty parables, but in metaphysical codes of creation. The mustard seed is not relevant because of its size, but because of its latent potential. Within the smallest resides the infinite, and in the stillness of a dormant seed lies the power to break through the earth, grow, expand, bloom, and give shade to others. So it is with your faith. Even in its tiniest form, it contains the complete code of the kingdom. Faith is vibration. It is resonance. It is a form of inner vision that transcends the physical senses. It is the eye of the soul that sees beyond appearances, that recognizes truth even before the mind can comprehend it. This is why Jesus did not choose the scholars of His time or the powerful of the world. He chose fishermen, outcast women, the sick, the poor in spirit, not because of who they were outwardly, but because of who they could become inwardly, if they believed. For whoever has faith accesses a dimension that logic cannot govern, and begins to operate from a higher quantum field, the field of Christ consciousness. Faith, then, is the language of the soul surrendered to the divine will. And surrendering is not giving up, it is aligning. When you align with the Source, when your innermost desire is in harmony with the divine plan of love, then you enter the natural flow of the universe, and everything begins to respond with a new geometry of order, beauty, and purpose. You are no longer a being tossed into existence at random, but a conscious co-creator of the kingdom of heaven on earth. From this perspective, faith is not simply believing in God, but believing with God. It is allowing the Spirit to speak through you, to act through you, to love through you. It is entering into a living and constant communion with the sacred presence that dwells within you, and from there, transforming your life into an act of revelation. Everything around you begins to reflect the inner coherence of your faith. You no longer react from fear, you respond from love. You no longer wait for change outside, you begin to manifest it from within. And so, faith becomes a sacred science. It is the inner alchemy of the soul that knows all form is the result of the energy that sustains it. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions are infused with true faith, that is, with a deep vibrational trust in divine reality, you activate the higher laws of the Spirit. These laws do not obey chance, nor linear logic, but the vibration of unity. They respond to the soul that knows who it is, that recognizes its divine sonship and behaves accordingly. Jesus walked on water, multiplied bread, healed with a word, raised the dead. He did not do these things to impress, but to show you what is possible when the soul is completely surrendered to the creative power of the Father-Mother. He himself said, "I do nothing on my own, but it is the Father who works through me." That same Father, that same source, that same presence lives in you. And when you believe, you allow it to work through you as well. Faith does not need to see to know. In fact, it knows before it sees. That is its nature. And that is why faith is the active principle of the kingdom. You do not access the kingdom through logic or analysis or human merit. You access it through faith, that is, through resonance with the pure vibration of love. When you believe, you are not imagining something that does not exist. You are recognizing the existence of the eternal within the temporary. You are remembering a higher reality that has always been there, waiting to be seen through the eye of the soul. And that kingdom is not a place in the sky. It is a state of consciousness. It is the living recognition of the presence of God in all things. And that kingdom begins to manifest first within you, as a peace that does not depend on the external, as a wisdom that does not come from books, as a silent fire that burns without consuming, as a certainty no argument can extinguish. Then, as a natural reflection, it begins to emerge in your outer life, in your relationships, your body, your path, your words. Faith, then, is a creative act. It is a silent decree imprinted on the quantum matrix of the universe. When you pray with faith, you are not begging from lack, you are declaring from inner fullness. You are reminding life of who you are, and reminding the universe of its original design, to serve you as a child of God. Jesus did not ask for perfect faith. He asked for living faith. Because it does not matter if your faith trembles. What matters is that it is rooted. What matters is that it is directed toward the Spirit. And if it is, it will grow. Because faith, when it is authentic, feeds itself. It grows in darkness. It strengthens in trial. It becomes firm in stillness. It expands in love. So if today you feel your faith is small, do not judge it. Be grateful. Nurture it. Water it with your surrender, with your silence, with your yielding to goodness. And you will see, it will take you further than your strength ever could. Because true faith is not yours, it is the Spirit within you, guiding you home. And that home is the kingdom that already lives within you. The word that germinates within you. When Jesus spoke, he was not merely making sounds or crafting speeches. Each word he uttered was a living emanation of the creative word, Logos. His voice did not belong to the realm of information, but to the realm of transformation. His language was not merely human, it was divine vibration encoded, designed to pierce through the density of ego, break the walls of forgetfulness, and activate within the human soul the original codes of Christ consciousness. In truth, Jesus did not speak to the intellect, he spoke to the spirit. His words were arrows of light that traveled beyond reason and lodged directly in the deep heart, where truth does not need to be understood in order to be recognized. That is why he said, "My words are spirit and they are life." And this was no metaphor, it was a literal affirmation of the vibrational power of the incarnate Word. The Word, in its highest dimension, is not a set of letters or sounds. It is a primordial force. It is the original breath of creation. It is the divine intelligence that shaped the universe and continues to sustain it from within. When the Christ speaks, the Word becomes a seed. And if that seed finds open soil within you, it germinates as revelation, healing, vision, awakening, and expansion. It doesn't matter how closed your consciousness has been. It doesn't matter how many times you've failed or how hardened the soil of your story has become. The Word does not retreat. Christ is not offended by your slowness or your past. He sows with patience, with love, with complete detachment. He knows that every soul, even the most wounded or asleep, contains a point of untouched purity, a spark that fear and illusion have never reached. That is where he plants his Word. The Word does not come to impose, it comes to invite. It does not demand understanding, only reception. Like a farmer sowing without knowing exactly how life will spring forth, so does the Christ cast his seeds of light into the invisible field of your being. And when you decide to open, even if with fear, even if uncertain, the miracle begins. Because it is not you who causes the seed to grow. It is the Spirit within you that makes it blossom. Every teaching of the Master Jesus is multidimensional. Each phrase is a key, and each key is encoded to open an inner chamber of your consciousness. Some keys open compassion, others open wisdom, others open unconditional love, others spiritual power. And when the words of the Word resonate with your soul, no darkness can remain. The light begins to reveal things that were always there, but which you couldn't see, not because they weren't real, but because your inner eyes had not yet opened. This is why Jesus said, "He who has ears to hear, let him hear." He was speaking to that sacred part of you that is already ready, even if your mind doubts it. Because hearing is not just listening, it is allowing the sound of the Spirit to transform your inner structure. It is letting the Word enter and cleanse, align, expand, organize, and renew. It is allowing the divine seed to awaken the divine in you. The Word does not just inform, it reforms. It does not merely transmit, it transfigures. It acts like a sacred medicine that dissolves the limiting memories of the ego, reconfigures subconscious beliefs, and aligns your soul with its origin. And when the Word germinates within you, there is no turning back. The process of awakening has already begun. That is why it is not enough to read the Master's words. They must be lived, drunk, invoked, felt, and embodied. It is necessary to open your heart like fertile soil and allow Christ to speak directly within you. Because he has not come to speak to you from the outside, but to remind you that you, too, can speak from the Word. That you, too, can create from aligned speech. That you, too, can act from presence. And then, the Word will no longer be merely a message received, but a frequency emanated. Your voice will become an echo of the word. Your thoughts will become instruments of the kingdom. Your gestures, channels of love. And your life, a living manifestation of the Word made flesh. This is how the kingdom is established, not from outer temples, but from the consciousness that has allowed the Word to germinate and flourish within its being. Do not fear if you still do not understand. Do not fear if you do not yet see the fruits. The seed has been planted. Trust. The Master knows the timing of the soul. The Spirit knows the rhythm of your awakening. Just keep watering it with faith, with silence, with surrender. And one day, in the moment you least expect, the flower of the kingdom will bloom within you, and you will know that the Word has finally germinated in your being. The path of justice is the right use of energy. Justice, as taught by Master Jesus, does not belong to the realm of human judgment or the moral codes imposed by external systems. In his higher vision, justice is not punishment, vengeance, or reparation. At its essence, justice is alignment with the divine law of love, and therefore a deep spiritual science. The sacred art of rightly using the life energy that flows through you. Jesus did not come to regulate behavior through fear or to impose lifeless rules. He came to reveal justice as a frequency, a resonance that arises when the soul reconnects with its source and acts from that place. A just person is not one who follows rules, but one who, through communion with the Spirit, lives in harmony with the eternal rhythm of love. Justice is not external, but vibrational. It is not based on punishment, but on coherence. And what is coherence? It is the state of being in which thought, feeling, word, and action flow in the same direction, that of universal love. Where there is no division between what you feel and what you do, between what you think and what you express, between what you believe and what you manifest. There, in that sacred alignment, true justice blossoms. Everything in the universe is energy, and all energy seeks to organize itself into patterns of balance. Injustice, at its deepest root, is imbalance. The misuse of vital energy, the disconnection from original purpose. When a human being forgets their divine nature, they use their power to possess, dominate, destroy, or resist. But when they remember their origin, that same power is transmuted into service, healing, creativity, and compassion. Jesus taught, not with words alone, but with living acts, that justice is to give without measuring, to love without condition, and to act not from duty, but from awakened presence. To give not only your cloak, but also your heart. To feed those hungry not just for bread, but for hope. To comfort the fallen not with pity, but from the deep understanding that the other is also you. Because that is justice in its highest form. The recognition of the unity of all that exists. When you no longer see the other as a stranger but as a reflection of your own soul, all judgment dissolves, and energy flows naturally toward communion. True justice arises when you stop responding from the wounded ego and begin to act from the I am within you. Christ, that awakened consciousness that lived in Jesus and can live in you, does not obey human systems, nor conform to outdated laws born of fear. Christ does not adapt to moral structures built by control. Christ responds only to the voice of the One, to the whisper of the Source, to the flow of wisdom that emanates from the center of all things. Christ does not react, he reveals. Therefore, when you act in the name of love, even if your actions challenge societal norms, you are acting justly. because justice is not conformity. Justice is alignment with the divine order that sustains life. Sometimes, justice defies human laws in order to obey the higher law. Such was the case when Jesus healed on the Sabbath, touched the unclean, embraced the excluded. He showed by example that the energy of compassion stands above religious formalism. And so, justice becomes liberation. Not only does it liberate the other, it liberates you from the chains of judgment, guilt, and separation. When you act with true justice, your soul enters into peace, because it has returned to its natural flow, love in action. Every act born from that place has a multiplying power, because it does not stem from the ego, but from the Spirit. And the Spirit knows only how to create expansion, blessing, and light. Christic justice is not a passive virtue, it is a creative force. It is the right use of your power, your will, your energy. It is channeling all the intensity of your being toward the greater good, toward unity, toward the kingdom. It is to know that every thought has weight, every word a vibration, and every act a wave that expands. And therefore, to live with the awareness that everything you do leaves a mark upon the whole. Justice, then, is not something to be declared, it must be embodied. And it is embodied when you stop acting out of habit and begin to act out of love. When your heart becomes the throne of the divine presence, and every decision is born not from the fear of failure, but from the desire to serve. For to serve is not to submit, it is to express from the highest within you. And that service is true justice, to place your energy at the service of the One in every aspect of your life. This is how the kingdom begins to manifest, not through external reform, but through an inner revolution. The revolution of the soul that has remembered its power is not to possess, but to liberate. That its words are not to condemn, but to heal. That its gaze is not to divide, but to embrace. That its presence is not to be seen, but to bless. This is justice. The sacred, conscious, loving, and creative use of the life energy entrusted to you. The Master knew this, and that is why he did not come to impose a system, but to ignite a consciousness. The consciousness of the just. The one who has discovered that only in love is the eternal order of all things revealed. Forgiveness as a bridge to liberation. Among all the teachings revealed by Master Jesus, there is one that rises above dogmas and creeds like a torch that illuminates the soul's path toward its liberation. Forgiveness. Not as an emotional reaction, nor as a moral obligation, but as a spiritual science, an inner alchemy, a conscious act of power that breaks the chains of suffering and restores the soul's sovereignty over its destiny. To forgive is not an act that depends on the other. It does not require the offender to apologize, the world to understand, or the wound to disappear. To forgive is a movement of the soul toward itself, a sacred decision to release the dead weight of offense in order to move toward the light. It is not about justifying the wound, but about refusing to keep bleeding from it. It is not about minimizing the pain, but about liberating oneself from the toxic bond that perpetuates it. Master Jesus, knower of the human heart, did not come to teach us to endure pain or to fake peace. He said, "Forgive 70 times 7, not as a literal number, but as an infinite frequency." Because forgiveness is not a single act, it is a state of consciousness. It is a continuous practice, an art of dissolving duality, a way of aligning with the vision of the Father-Mother who sees beyond form, beyond error, beyond the mask. Forgiveness is not a sign of weakness. It is, in fact, an act of supreme spiritual power. The one who truly forgives becomes master of themselves. They reclaim their energy. They withdraw their attention from the past. They cut the invisible cords that kept them tied to the vibration of conflict. To forgive is to declare, I will no longer carry this burden with you. I do not condemn you, I do not bind you, I do not demand from you. I return you to the source, and I return to myself. Because as long as you judge, you remain trapped. Judgment is a form of energetic attachment. What you do not release possesses you. What you condemn stays with you. What you hate becomes part of you. Thus, judgment chains, resentment poisons, hatred divides. But forgiveness liberates. Forgiveness dissolves the illusion of separation. Forgiveness is the golden bridge that allows you to cross from ego to essence, from fear to love, from time to eternity. In the vision of the Christ, there is no condemnation, only opportunity. What you see as error, the Spirit sees as experience. What you interpret as betrayal, God perceives as a mirror sent to show you where healing was still needed. Forgiveness, then, is not a denial of reality. It is a reinterpretation from a higher level of consciousness. It is the shift in perception that happens when you stop seeing with the eyes of pain and begin to see with the eyes of the soul. To forgive is to remember that you too have hurt, that you too have fallen, that you too have acted from unconsciousness. And so, it is to open a space of compassion, not just for the other, but for yourself. Because often, the one you most need to forgive is not someone else, but the one you see in the mirror. The one who carried guilt, who got lost in doubt, who strayed from the path. The one who now asks for your embrace and your absolution. Forgiveness is not sentimentality. It is energetic transmutation. It is an alchemical act that turns the lead of the wound into the gold of wisdom. It is the act by which you reclaim control over your vibrational field. It is the moment when you stop reacting from the story and begin to respond from the Spirit. And then, the pain no longer holds power over you. The past loses its authority, and your soul rises above the timeline to dwell in the eternity of the present. Jesus forgave from the cross, not because the pain was small, but because his consciousness was great. Because he knew that those who do not forgive perpetuate the cycle, and those who forgive break it. He did not come to seek revenge, but to liberate. He did not come to condemn those who did not understand, but to lift them with his silence. Because Christ does not need to punish in order to teach. He teaches with his light, and that light transforms from within. And so can you. You do not need to have all the answers. You only need to desire to be free. If your soul longs for peace more than pride, more than being right, more than revenge, then forgiveness has already begun. Because forgiveness is a vibrational intention that the universe hears and responds to. When you forgive, all of creation conspires to restore you. So today, in this moment, you can choose to let go. You can choose to remember that the other is nothing more than an image in the sacred theater of your evolution. You can choose to trust that love is greater than any wound. You can choose to release and be released. Because in the act of forgiving, you do not just free the other, you return yourself to home. Forgiveness is the secret doorway that leads to the kingdom. And every time you pass through that doorway, a piece of heaven descends to earth. Love as the supreme law of the universe. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. With these words, Master Jesus did not transmit a religious obligation or establish an external moral code. He revealed instead the vibrational key that sustains the architecture of the universe. He was not offering advice but unveiling an eternal law. Love is the very substance of creation. It is the mother energy of all form, the living intelligence behind every atom, the eternal current that unites all things. Love is not a human emotion or an affectionate desire. It is not attachment or need. It is not attraction or sympathy. Love is the primordial vibration of the One manifested. It is the original impulse of spirit that expresses, gives, and recognizes itself in all that it has created. It is the invisible force that holds galaxies together and the silent spark that makes your heart beat. It is cause and end. It is beginning and path. It is what you are, before being anything else. Jesus knew this. He did not love from personality, but from the Christic state of unity. That is why he could heal with a look, lift the fallen with a word, liberate with a touch. Because his love had no condition, made no distinction, judged nothing, resisted nothing. It was an absolute, universal, limitless love, the love of one who has seen the whole and can no longer separate what the Spirit has united. When the Master said, "Whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me," he spoke from the love that sees the one in everything. There is no other. There is no they and us. There are no real enemies, only projections of the ego that has not yet remembered its origin. To love, then, is not an external duty but an inner activation of the eternal truth that says, "You and I are the same being." So when you love, you are actually recognizing yourself. You are seeing beyond form, beyond the body, beyond persona, beyond error. You are seeing the being that dwells behind all things. And in that act of recognition, the kingdom becomes present. The veil dissolves. Judgment fades. Fear transforms. Because love is the frequency that transmutes everything. And what you give to yourself, not as a metaphor, but as an immutable vibrational law. Every act of love elevates your frequency, purifies your field, opens the channels of spirit, and aligns your soul with the rhythm of the universe. And what you deny to yourself, not because someone punishes you, but because the universe, as a living mirror, can only return what you emit. To love is to sow in the quantum matrix of reality, and the harvest is inevitable. When you live in love, you no longer act from effort, but from flow. You no longer struggle to receive, because you know what you give will be multiplied. You no longer fear loss, because you understand that in true love, everything expands. You become an open channel, an instrument of the creative force, a living presence of spirit on earth. And that is the highest mission, to embody love not as an idea, but as a constant vibration. Love is the law that is not imposed, it is revealed. It is not demanded, it is allowed. It is not learned, it is remembered. Because deep down, we all carry it inscribed in the soul. We have lived it in the original realm. We knew it before time. And now, here in this plane, we are called to remember it, to reincarnate that love we once were and still are. That is why Jesus taught that the fulfillment of the entire law is summed up in loving. Because the one who loves no longer needs external rules. Their soul becomes a compass. Their intuition aligns with higher wisdom. Their actions become bridges. Their presence becomes medicine. Love excludes no one. It does not ask if you deserve it. It does not measure. It does not condition. It does not withhold. It gives because it is. And in that giving, it is renewed. In that giving, it is recognized. In that giving, it multiplies. Because that is its nature. It is the only energy that, when shared, is not divided, but expanded. When you truly love, without expecting, without demanding, without possessing, you become a living vortex of healing and abundance. There is no longer separation between you and the source, because love is the current that unites all that exists with its origin. Love is the direct connection to the Creator, and therefore, to love is to pray with your life itself. That is why the Master tells you today, if you want to live in fullness, love. If you want to heal your soul, love. If you want to know God, love. If you want to remember who you are, love. If you want to return to the kingdom, love. Love is the way, the truth, and the life. And when you choose to love, you choose to return home. The kingdom is not outside, but within you. The greatest forgetfulness of humanity has not been losing faith in God, but believing that God is far away, separated, in some inaccessible place, hidden behind intermediaries, doctrines, or religious structures. And yet, Jesus was clear, direct, and deeply revealing when he said, "The kingdom of God is within you." Within that phrase lies encoded one of the most powerful truths of the universe. A truth that, if fully recognized, would shatter the illusion of separation, end the external search, and open the inner doors of the soul to its divine reality. But to embrace it, it is necessary to strip away the veils. It is necessary to see again, with the eyes of the Spirit. The kingdom is not a geographical place or a distant paradise in a future time. It is a state of consciousness, a vibrational dimension that is activated not through merit, but through recognition. Not through effort, but through openness. Not through fear, but through love. Jesus did not speak of the kingdom as a reward, but as a reality. He did not offer it as a distant promise, but as an immediate presence. The kingdom is not built, it is revealed. It is not reached by running outward, but by stopping, emptying, and entering the inner sanctuary where eternal truth dwells. In the deep silence of your being. In the deep silence of your being, that space without words, without masks, without demands, dwells the Father-Mother, the one Creator who gave you origin not from matter, but from spirit. There, in that unchanging center, burns a flame that cannot be extinguished. It is the living altar of your soul, and you can enter there at any moment. You don't need complex rituals, sacred languages, or time-bound structures. You only need willingness, presence, and openness. The kingdom is within you. It is not something to come, it already is. It is not conditional, it is waiting to be recognized. And that recognition doesn't happen through the intellect, but through the heart. When you close your eyes to the external world and enter stillness, the kingdom begins to reveal its landscape. A place of causeless peace, joy without object, and love without limits. Your body is the living temple. It was not created to be profaned by fear, judgment, or neglect, but to be inhabited by presence. It is in this body that divinity desires to manifest. It is here that the invisible longs to become visible. Your mind is the altar where each thought is laid as an offering, and when that mind is purified by truth, it becomes a channel of the kingdom. Your love is the flame that sustains the living connection with the One. And your presence is the priest, officiating communion between heaven and earth, between the eternal and the embodied. Understand, then, that seeking God outside is seeking in illusion. The God you can speak to is within you. The kingdom you can dwell in is within you. The heaven you long for is not after death, it is beyond the ego. When you quiet the noise of projections, when you lay down the ego's defenses, when you renounce the false idols of this world, you begin the journey inward. And there, on that inner path, the kingdom unfolds. You don't need to be perfect to enter. You only need to be sincere. You don't need to master techniques, only to surrender to the truth burning in your deepest core. Because the kingdom is not for those who accumulate merit, but for those who empty themselves. For those who become like children, humble, receptive, transparent, present. And when the kingdom is revealed, everything changes. Not because the world has changed, but because your perception has. You begin to see unity behind form, light behind every shadow, purpose behind every experience. You live from a different frequency. You act from another level of consciousness. You no longer react, you create. You no longer fear, you trust. You no longer crave, you give thanks. Where the world sees problems, you see opportunities. Where others see separation, you see the dance of unity expressing itself. Because the kingdom is not only experienced within you, it also reflects through you. It becomes your way of seeing, speaking, touching, being. The kingdom is not only a destination, it is your revealed identity. You are an heir of that kingdom, not because of your story, but because of your origin. You were created from the source itself, and that source dwells in you. Every search, every prayer, every longing, every tear, has been the echo of your soul trying to remember what was never truly lost. And now you know. You don't have to go far, you just have to return to yourself. The kingdom of heaven is within you, and you are called to reveal it in this world. Abundance, healing, and miracles, the science of spirit. When Jesus multiplied the loaves, restored sight to the blind, or calmed the raging sea, he did not act from some isolated supernatural power or with the intention to impress. His ability to manifest the invisible into the visible, to transform matter with a word, and to dissolve suffering through compassion came from a state of perfect alignment with the universal spirit, with the source that lived in him and that also lives in you. Jesus did not say, "I do," but "the Father who dwells in me, he does the works." Within that simple statement lies a metaphysical key of immense power. Miracles do not arise from personal effort, but from conscious union with the Source. And it is in that union, in that joyful surrender of the individual self to the divine self, that the higher laws of spirit are activated. Miracles are not violations of natural law, but manifestations of higher laws that govern creation from superior planes of consciousness. They are expressions of divine order that operates beyond the limitations of the linear mind. And you, as a child of the living God, have access to that same power when you stop identifying with limitation and begin to remember your divine lineage. True healing, true abundance, and true miracles are not born from desperate desire or emotional lack. They are not begged for, they are recognized. Because everything has already been given. Everything your soul needs to flourish is contained within the seed of your being. The presence of God in you is the inexhaustible source. It never runs out, never withdraws. It only waits to be activated by your recognition. The entire universe is alive. And within its subtle framework exist spiritual laws as precise and perfect as physical laws. One of them is this: according to your faith, so shall it be done unto you. Not because faith has power in and of itself, but because faith aligns you with the source that contains all power. It is the channel through which divine light downloads into your human experience. Faith is not blind belief. It is deep knowing that unity already is. It is acting from that certainty, feeling from that truth, speaking from that presence. When you ask for something from lack, you affirm it as absent. When you recognize it from inner abundance, you are already receiving it. That's why Jesus said, "When you pray, believe that you have already received it, and it shall be yours." This is not poetic phrasing. It is a precise instruction on how creative consciousness works. Gratitude in advance is a signal to the universe that you are already aligned with the reality of the kingdom, where there is no lack, no illness, no separation. True abundance, healing, and miracles. The science of spirit. True abundance is not the accumulation of possessions, but the activation of divine flow in all areas of your life. It is the state of alignment with the One, where you receive because you are in service, because you are in resonance with the law of giving and receiving. True healing is not merely the restoration of the body, but the correction of perception, shifting from fear to love, from judgment to forgiveness, from separation to unity. And true miracles are not spectacular events, but shifts in consciousness that bring peace, clarity, and inner transformation. Jesus did not come to demonstrate power. He came to show you your inheritance, to remind you that you, too, can do what he did, and even greater things, if you dwell in the same state of consciousness. He did not see himself as the only Son of God, but as the firstborn among many, the model of the awakened soul, the mirror of who you are at your core. And his eternal message is this: you too can heal. You too can create. You too can multiply. Because the kingdom is within you. But for that to happen, you must undo the belief in lack. You must free your mind from the thought of separation. You must remember that the source is not far away, nor does it demand sacrifice. The source is your very essence. It is closer than your breath, more intimate than your thoughts, more present than any image around you. And when you recognize it as such, everything begins to flow from a higher plane. This is the science of spirit. To know that energy follows thought, that thought is shaped by belief, and that belief is the fruit of your identity. When you know who you are, you believe in the unlimited. When you believe in the unlimited, you think from expansion. And when you think from expansion, your energy becomes a channel of pure manifestation. There is no need to beg God for what already lives within you. You only need to open yourself, purify your channels, let fall the barriers of fear, and allow grace to act. Grace is the law of love operating effortlessly, the divine energy manifesting wherever there is availability. And that availability begins in the heart that says, "Let it be done to me according to your will." And when that will is recognized as one with your deepest desire, everything aligns. Everything responds. Everything finds order. Because the universe is not governed by struggle, but by harmony. Spirit does not force, it invites. It does not demand, it offers. It does not observe from outside, it expresses from within. You are the miracle waiting to manifest. You are the healing awaiting release. You are the abundance waiting to be shared. You only need to remember who you are and align with what already is. The false self must die for the Christ within you to be born. There is no resurrection without surrender. There is no ascension without renunciation. There is no awakening without the disidentification from the illusory self. Jesus did not come only to teach you how to live on earth, but to show you how to die to illusion in order to be reborn in truth. The process he lived, his passion, death, and resurrection, is more than a historical account. It is a living metaphor of the path every soul must walk so that the inner Christ may manifest. That path begins with a death, the death of the false self, the self conditioned by time, trapped in story, fed by fear, defined by pain. That self is not your enemy, but it is not your truth either. It is a character built by the mind to survive in a world based on separation. It is the identity you've assumed, without realizing you are not that. And it is this false self that Jesus invites you to let go of. The false self says, I am my name, I am my past, I am what they did to me, I am what I think, I am what I fear. But none of those statements define your real being. Your true identity has no story, no shape, no limits. It is pure presence. It is unalterable consciousness. It is unquenchable light. And that light is Christ in you, the perfect image of God that still lives within, waiting to be recognized. The false self cannot inherit the kingdom, because it cannot enter the vibration of unity. The kingdom is not for those who cling to their masks, but for those who lay them down in humility. It is not for those who assert their personality, but for those who dissolve into truth. That is why Jesus said, Whoever seeks to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses it for my sake will find it. He was not speaking of biological death, but of surrendering the false identity in order to find the eternal self. To die to the self does not mean to destroy, it means to release what you are not. It is to renounce mental attachments, unhealed wounds, and defense mechanisms. It is to stop protecting a limited image of yourself and begin to inhabit the vastness of your original being. It is to look clearly and compassionately at all the conditioning that has shaped you, and to let it go, one by one, until only the essential remains. And when that happens, there is no emptiness, there is revelation. What emerges from that surrender is not nothingness, but fullness. Christ in you awakens, not as an idea, but as a living experience. A presence that inhabits you, guides you, transforms you. And that presence is immortal, invulnerable, indestructible. It cannot be touched by death or pain. It is the I am, the spark of the One, the manifestation of eternity in your form. This is the true resurrection. When you stop being someone and begin to be everything. When you no longer act from the mind, but from the Spirit. When your words are born from inner truth. When your decisions are not based in fear, but in love. When your life no longer revolves around survival, but becomes a channel of the kingdom. There, and only there, Christ can live in you and as you. Jesus did not come to be worshipped, but to be activated. Jesus did not come to be worshipped. He came to be activated. He did not come to occupy a throne, but to plant himself in your consciousness. He is the mirror in which you can recognize yourself, not as a perfect ego, but as pure essence. And that essence is not found in what you do or achieve. It is found in who you are when you rest in silence, when you stop interpreting, when you simply are. The process of dying to the false self is not painful because it is death, but because we resist it. The ego fears being dissolved because it believes it will cease to exist. But the truth is, only when the ego is quiet can the soul begin to truly live. And what is born from that surrender is not a new self, but the eternal self that has always been there, waiting, watching, holding you, even when you had forgotten. That I am needs no validation. It does not need to be seen, recognized, to be right, to win, or to shine. It only longs to express itself as the love that it is. And that is Christ in you. The consciousness that no longer lives for itself, but as a channel of divine life in motion. So when you choose to symbolically die to what you are not, you are truly born into what you have always been. And then you understand the deep mystery in the words of the Master. I am the resurrection and the life. Because in dissolving the separate self, what is revealed is life itself. The life that does not die, the life that you are, the life that is. The second coming is within. For centuries, the hearts of believers have longed for the glorious return of Master Jesus. The Scriptures have been interpreted with outward-facing eyes, projecting onto the heavens a hope for a celestial manifestation, one that would restore order, judge the wicked, comfort the righteous, and inaugurate a new world. But the deepest and most veiled truth is this. The second coming of Christ is not an external spectacle. It is an inner awakening. It is not an event in the sky, but a transformation in the soul. The return of Jesus is not the return of a man. It is the reactivation of a frequency. It is the awakening of Christ consciousness in every human being willing to remember their divine origin. This consciousness does not belong to one individual. It is the inheritance of the universal soul. It is the living legacy of the only begotten Son who dwells in all, beyond name, beyond form, beyond time. Whenever a heart opens and recognizes its unity with the whole, Christ returns. When someone chooses to forgive where they once condemned, to love where they once feared, to offer peace where they once reacted, there, the second coming occurs. Because Jesus does not return to walk upon clouds, but to walk once more within you, as you, through you. His return is an incarnation of consciousness. He seeks no thrones or temples, but available souls. He does not require crowds, just one willing heart. And when the soul says, yes, when it sincerely opens to the mystery of the I Am, Christ awakens within, not as a concept, but as living presence. Not as memory, but as embodied reality. And then, everything begins to change. You no longer see the world through the eyes of duality. You no longer live by fear. You no longer decide from your wounds. You begin to perceive the kingdom, not as a distant promise, but as a near, immediate, and present reality. You begin to speak from wisdom, to act from compassion, to create from love. You become part of the living body of the new world, because Christ needs your form to be reborn on earth. And you are not alone in this process, because the Holy Spirit, Mother Sophia, the divine intelligence of love, descends upon your soul as sacred fire, as deep comfort, as revealed wisdom. She does not shout or demand. She whispers, she caresses. She guides you from within. She leads you to the stillness where God speaks without words. She is the promised comforter. She is the inner guide who transforms your soul into a vessel for the Word. This is the new covenant, so different from the old. Not written on stone, not imposed by law, not upheld by fear. It is a covenant inscribed in the innermost being, written with the light of the Spirit upon the altar of your consciousness. It is an unbreakable union between the human soul and the eternal source. A covenant based not on sacrifice, but on unity. Not on fear of punishment, but on the joy of communion. Not on blind obedience, but on living wisdom. Jesus promised to return, and his promise was not delayed. It is being fulfilled now, in this time, in this generation, in every soul who dares to look within and discover there the flame of the living Christ, ready to rise from the ashes of the ego, from the rubble of fear, from the darkness of separation. The second coming is not a date on the calendar. It is an expansion of collective consciousness. It is a rebirth of the planetary soul. It is the call to live from the inner kingdom and extend it to every corner of the world, not through imposition, but through vibration. When you become a living presence of Christ, when your life becomes an expression of divine love, when the kingdom stops being a belief and becomes a frequency you inhabit, then the return has already occurred in you, and through you, he continues coming into the world. He continues healing. He continues revealing. He continues loving. Christ returns every time someone remembers who they are. And you, if you have felt these words, if your soul has resonated with this truth, you are already part of his return. You are a child of the light, heir to the kingdom. You were not born to crawl through the shadows of ignorance, nor to carry the weight of pain forever. You were not sent to this world to suffer, to live in fear, or to pay any debt imposed by a punishing God. That is the great lie that, for centuries, has distorted your spiritual vision. The deepest truth is this: you were born to remember. You were born to come home. Your soul is not a fallen creation, but a divine extension. Your life is not a punishment, but a sacred opportunity. Your presence here is not accidental. It is on purpose, because within you dwells an eternal seed that cannot be extinguished, the light of your origin, the fire of the I Am, the inner Christ still whispering from the silence of your being. The Creator, Father, Mother, God, is neither judge nor executioner. He/she does not punish, does not demand blood or suffering, does not divide the worthy from the unworthy. He/she waits, holds, guides, and restores. His love is not conditional, but absolute. Her compassion does not depend on your merits, but on her essence. She does not impose, she offers. She does not require sacrifice, she asks for surrender. She does not seek your external perfection, she longs for your inner sincerity. And when you begin to remember, when you choose to look beyond the veils, beyond the character you believed yourself to be. The silent miracle occurs. The veil falls. The world that once seemed opaque, threatening, or cold begins to vibrate differently. Your heart softens. Your inner eyes open. Your soul expands. Because you realize something that transforms your entire existence. You are already one with the light. You always have been. You had only forgotten. Awakening adds nothing to your being. It simply removes what you are not. It does not make you more divine. It simply clears the obstacles that were keeping the divine from expressing through you. Everything you longed for, love, peace, safety, wholeness, was never outside. It was always within, waiting to be recognized. And when you recognize it, your way of living changes radically. You no longer live from effort, but from grace. You no longer fight to be accepted, because you know you always were. You no longer beg for light, because you have discovered you are an extension of it. You no longer act from fear, but from trust, because the kingdom is not a prize to attain. It is your inheritance to remember. You don't need to deserve it, you only need to inhabit it. And the kingdom is not far away, nor reserved for a chosen few. It is here, now, beating in your chest, vibrating in every cell, whispering in every present moment. The door is not merely open. It has never been closed. The banquet is not about to be served. It has already been set for you. The Master does not call you from the outside, but from within, from the depths of your being, from that eternal place where you have never been separated from God. The call is not to a location, but to a state, not to an external temple, but to the living sanctuary within you. Not for tomorrow, but for now. Because the time of awakening is not in the future. It is eternal present. And you, beloved child of the light, are already the rightful heir of the kingdom. That kingdom is not made of gold or heavenly walls. It is made of consciousness, of unity, of unconditional love. To inherit the kingdom is not to possess something. It is to remember yourself in your purest form. It is to live as one who knows who they are. It is to act as one who has returned home, even while still in the world. And so, in that state of clarity, humility, and surrender, you understand that there is nothing left to say, only a response to give. The Master is calling you, not to impose a path, but to reveal that you are the path, not to save you from something, but to help you remember that you have always been in God. The call is now, dear soul. If these words have resonated within you, if some part of your being has vibrated with this truth, do not let them pass as just another whisper among many. This is not just another teaching. It is a deep calling to remember who you are. It is the activation of a sacred memory that has been sleeping in the depths of your being. The kingdom is not in tomorrow. Christ is not in the sky waiting to descend. Everything is happening here, now, within you. And when you choose to remember, when you choose to awaken, when you choose to live from the I am, All of creation aligns with you, because you have returned to the center. If this message has touched your heart, share this light. We do not know how many souls it may reach. We do not know whom it may awaken. But what we do know is this: a word sown with love never falls in vain. I invite you to share what you've felt, to leave your mark of awareness in this space of light. Each word of yours may inspire another seeker. I invite you to subscribe, if this path resonates with you, so that we may continue to grow together on this journey of the soul. And above all, I invite you to share this message, because the world needs to remember. Because there are many souls waiting for a sign, a word, a bridge. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the living body of awakening. The Master lives. The kingdom dwells within you. The moment is now. We'll meet again, in the silence of the soul, where we are all one.